Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, as everybody knows, to get ahead in the S&P, you need to fail. The trick is, of course, to fail upwards. And of course, the higher up the ranks you go, the bigger the failure you are. That's how you get to the top, isn't it? You've got to be the best failer of all. And this is no more true for Humza Yousaf than it has been for anyone else. But he, of course, holds the record for the most number of fails. He's failed in every job he's ever had, spectacularly in quite a few of them, and it looks like he's about to fail in this one as well. But the Scottish Tories have got hold of some information and they've released it today, and it goes to show how many times he failed as the Health Secretary. How many times do you think he missed targets? 10 times? 15? 20? Can't be much more than 20, 25. Yeah. No. Humza Yousaf, as her Health Secretary, missed over 140 targets. How's he got a job? How has he become First Minister when it's quite clear he is incapable of doing anything? It blows your mind. Anyway, we'll take a look at this to see the sort of things he fails at. We're not surprised though, are we? Here goes. So Humza Yousaf missed over 140 targets during his disastrous tenure as Health Secretary. But you could take out the word health and put in justice, transport, First Minister. It doesn't matter, does it? Everything he does is disastrous tenure, can be applied to everything. The First Minister has lived up to the widespread condemnation of his record as Health Minister. As evidence lists failures from child mental health to cancer waiting lists, and generally in waiting lists, and every possible area you can imagine it's possible to fail in. He has failed spectacularly. So SNP leader Humza Yousaf missed more than 140 targets during his ministerial time managing the Scottish NHS. And he wasn't in control for very long, let's be honest. A collection of records from the Scottish Tories reveal the extent of healthcare goals that fell short. Under the now First Minister, the NHS repeatedly missed targets for child and adult mental health, emergency waiting times, cancer waiting times, and the intake of staff to the workforce. Missed. Fail. It is a litany of failure. The man can look back at his time as Health Secretary and just see an absolute failure. He cannot point to one thing that has been a success, although that can be applied to everything in his career. Yet again, fails. Only this time he's failing people who are dying on his watch. This is how bad it is. He served as Health Secretary between May 21 and March 23. So not even 2 years. So he was averaging over 70 fails a year. That's over a fail a week. That's like a fail and a half a week. And as many as 141 of the Scottish Government's aims were missed, and 5 areas have been attributed directly to him, his guidance, his policies. CAMHS waiting lists were not cleared by March 2023 as promised in his NHS recovery plan in 2021. And a pledge to clear adult psychological therapy waiting lists at the same time did not transpire, because he opens his mouth and he makes announcements that sound good, that make him sound like he's going to hit the ground running. He's the action man. He's going to deal with these problems. Then he goes, sits in his office, puts his head in his hands and cries because he knows he cannot do the job. He's been over-promoted. If ever the Peter Principle exists, it is in the form of Humza Yousaf. The long-time MSP made a 2022 commitment to power through a waitlist of more than a year for outpatient procedures, but failed to do so by his target of March this year. The Scottish Tory said, "This staggering amount of missed targets confirms that Humza Yousaf was the worst Health Secretary since devolution, possibly ever. But to be fair, Jenny Gilruth is giving it a fair crack of the whip. She's well on her way to missing targets too. The Shadow Health Secretary, Dr. Sandesh Galain, MSP, added his flimsy NHS recovery plan has completely failed on every measure and left patients and my colleagues on the front line to suffer. I mean, of course, they're only ever going to suffer under the NHS run by the SNP, and more so even then when it's run by Humza Yousaf, a man who has not a single clue. After missing close to 150 targets during his disastrous tenure in charge of Scotland's NHS, it is astonishing Humza Yousaf managed to fail upwards into Bute House. Also revealed has been the failure to encourage nursing and midwifery students into university to fill roles for 2023. Midwifery, and not now to be fair, this is not just a Scottish problem. This is a UK-wide problem. Midwifery in this whole country is in a terrible state of affairs. There's not enough of them. They're not training enough. They're not giving them good enough money. The hours are crap. They force them, keep forcing them in to do work because there aren't enough people there doing it. They just cannot, get people in to do midwifery. And you wonder why. If anything is important in medicine, midwifery is really, really important. So that isn't just him. I mean, he's failed on his bailiwick. His bailiwick is Scottish midwives, and he's failed there. But generally, it's a failure for midwives. This comes amid a dire warning from the Royal College of Nursing warned that as the plummeting numbers of people applying to join the profession amid a staffing crisis. Too many hours, not enough backup, not enough respect from people from the government, senior management treating people like drones, and the workforce, they're not people, they're just replaceable work units. The salaries need to go up a bit, and you need better terms and conditions. Not all money, it's not all money, but I mean, money's a lot of it, but there's other things as well. There is so many things, and when you do that and then you show, hey, we respect the nurses, we respect these people doing this hard work, and it is a horrible job. My mother was a nurse for 100 years, and it is absolutely hard work, but they're not being rewarded for it, and they're not, and especially as there's fewer of them, then they're expected to work harder and harder and harder. And I don't want to harp on about it. My sort of week in hospital just over a year ago showed me two things. One, the nurses that were there were working so hard they didn't have time to deal with patients. There weren't enough nurses by a long shot. Yes, to deal with one patient, meanwhile 4 other patients were waiting. And secondly, there was whole systemic failure top to bottom. It wasn't the staff. It wasn't the people at the front end. They were working really hard. The problem was, A, there wasn't enough of them. B, they weren't given enough resources. And C, it was full of management making stupid decisions. But that's a different video. Go back and look at that video. I watched it recently and I was shocked at how I came across. I was like a little wizened old man. I wasn't forthright. I was quiet. I thought it wasn't me. And that was just like a few days in hospital. The NHS is falling apart. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf's A&E wait time failures have been long documented, with the weekly publication of data from Public Health Scotland. During his time in health, the target for 95% of A&E patients to be seen within 4 hours was not met once in the 97 weeks he was in charge. And he failed to ever meet the 62-day standard for cancer waiting times. He did not present his plans for the hated National Care Service to Parliament by the end of 2022, as promised. And a pledge first set out by Shona Robertson to end delayed discharge was not met. But let's face it, Jean Freeman, she did get rid of all that delayed discharge problem. That was a major problem, delayed discharge. But she cleared that. She cleared that brilliantly. And we've covered that one, by the use of end-of-life euthanasia treatment being suggested as a COVID treatment. No wonder they cleared over 900 beds in less than a month. All those do not resuscitate notices as well. Well done, Jean. How many thousands died? How many thousands did you sign off? Were you sitting there like a prison guard at Auschwitz? Yes, cooler, Ovens, 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 work, ovens. That's Jean Freeman. Give her a nice little black uniform. Anyway, a Scottish Government spokesman said, we're committed to eradicating long waits, which have been exacerbated by the pandemic. I think they're more committed to eradicating the NHS and elderly people. That seems to be the raison d'etre for the SNP. They keep changing their plans. They keep going, oh, well, this didn't work. Let's change the plan again. They haven't given the first plan a chance, but they need to change it because they want an immediate result. And when an immediate result doesn't come, they change and they change and they change. And then they keep changing the targets because they know they can never... What's the one we can meet? Well, give me one target we can reach. So go, well, I'm going to make a promise on this one. The simplest single target that they can possibly reach. One that they'll be almost guaranteed to reach. They announce it and then they fail. Serial failure led by serial failure. Time and again. And people die. People die at the hands of the SNP. We've seen it. We know it. And I've done the videos about it. They should on no account be allowed to run the NHS. Anyway, I'm going to stop there and I'll round off and come up. So in excess of 140 fails in one job in less than 2 years qualifies him to become First Minister. How many fails has he had since? All of them. Everything he's done. He hasn't had one success to date. He hasn't got one policy through. He hasn't won one by-election. He hasn't had a single policy suggestion accepted. He's tried on 4 occasions to push, of course, for independence. Every single one of them has been rebuffed. And he's been told every plan he's got will fail. You'd think he'd learn. You'd think he'd know failure by now. Surely he knows what a failure looks like. Or does he not have a mirror in his house? Anyway, thank you very much for listening. If you like what you've seen here in the channel, please do hit that button there, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and for heaven's sake, stay out of hospital. Bye.